Welcome to NASPA Tonight. All your Scrabble news here during the week. I'm your host, Josh Greenway, and joining me is my good friend, special guest host this week, Roger Cullman. Roger, how are you?
I'm great. Great to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Roger is a Scrabble legend around these parts. You've been doing it for longer than I have, right? You probably, how many career games do you think you have?
Oh,
I think it's over 3,000, right?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like moving in on that 5,000. You get a plaque when you play 5,000 games. I'd like to get one of those plaques, but it's going to take me quite a while. But we spent some time together this past weekend because you came out to the Kingston Open, and you did pretty well. We started with an early bird. That's what you start with, and you took care of the early bird. What was your secret to your success?
Being in the lower division of two divisions of the early bird, so I didn't get to play Jackson.
Right. But you didn't get to play me. You took care of me pretty good.
Thank you.
So, in case you don't know Roger, we've known each other now for, I would guess, like around 10 years.
Since you've been playing Scrabble. Yeah.
Exactly. And when I first got to know you, you were a professional photographer, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that career, and then we can talk about sort of career transition as well.
Sure. So I'm still a photographer / photojournalist, but I went back to school about 4 years ago to do a bit of a career shift, and now I'm a registered massage therapist, or RMT as we say in Ontario. Mm-hmm. And that's my full-time gig. The last 2 years I've been doing that full-time, and still have some time for some Scrabble here and there. But I did take a bit of a Scrabbatical. I was not playing for the entire 2 years that I was back in school. It's a pretty intense program.
Right.
And so I was a little rusty coming back, and I still kept playing tournaments, and I dropped a whole lot of rating points, and I've only just come back to almost where I left off rating-wise. And starting to remember all the words I forgot, and now they've introduced new words, so I'm absorbing those, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember those 2 years because you probably had to fend off tournament directors left and right who were like, where's Roger? Let's send out the outreach to all the players we want to come. I'm sure I asked you 8 times during those 2 years to come to various events, and you were always very polite, but you would say, I'm in this intense course. Like, it must have been super intense.
Yeah.
And you had to turn down a lot of suitors, I'm sure.
I didn't even play a friendly game, I think, in that whole 2 years, or at least for after maybe the third month in, I was like, okay, this is too intense. I got to just put Scrabble aside for a moment and concentrate on my studies. And no regrets, but
other than some of those early losses.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's cool, like, for those of us out there, and I've certainly done it, that have done a career change, like, what got you to that decision? And like, I mean, that's always a tough choice to make. I've made a couple of zigs and zags in my career, and some of them were painful. But I feel like they've always worked out for the best in the end, but they were hard to take at the time. Did you find kind of the same thing?
Well, without going into too much detail, because it's not that appropriate to Scrabble kind of theme show, but I did have a motor vehicle accident, and I couldn't work for a while. And in my downtime, and as part of my recovery and rehabilitation, was massage therapy and physiotherapy.
Right.
And so being on that side of the table, as it were, it allowed me to appreciate more of the bodywork type healing arts, and decided, hey, I could see myself doing that. Maybe I should look into it. And around the same time, an old acquaintance of mine was in massage school, so I started asking him more about it, and the more I found out about it, the more it made sense for me to pursue that, because I love helping people and I like working with my hands, and it was a good combination. So I stuck with it, went through an intense 16-month program, did my board exams, and I've been registered for just over 2 years now.
Very good. We've gotten some comments already on Facebook. We've got Noah Slatkoff fact checking. You've played 3,425 games, FYI.
Wow.
And we've got the lovely Susan saying, "Hey, I see you." So that's nice. Now, the last thing on registered massage therapy or massage therapy is you've been giving me a lot of advice the last couple of days. We were out at the Kingston Open, and I did something to my back. I don't know what happened. I've been in a ton of pain. I'm playing hurt tonight, and you have been very generous with your advice. As I have also found out, if you have something going on with your back, there is no end to the amount of free advice you get, but you want to turn to a trusted professional who has some insights on that. So anyway, enough about that. It was a tough weekend, but I think that's what we should get into next.
Sure,
is let's talk about what happened this weekend. So what we're going to talk about first is the Kingston Open. And they're still going to be able to hear us here. Anyway, Kingston Open, what we saw was we had 3 winners who all Gibsonized the field. They absolutely killed it. And we were both there to bear witness. We were under the hegemony of Jackson in the TWL Open division. And Jackson, who formerly had an association with this show, who is on an extended break. I like to say, we'll see if the young man comes back. But he absolutely destroyed this weekend while also working at the tournament, which I found to be a little more challenging than I think young Jackson did. Did you have any thoughts on, we were talking before about challenges with directing and playing at the same time?
Well, I'm actually an NASPA director as well, and I directed one tournament that I played in, or maybe 2 one-day tournaments, and I found it really challenging, and I think my performance definitely suffered. So that's as much as I can speak to on that. I don't know how Jackson can still win 18 games while directing out of 20. That's next level stuff.
And he was doing the lion's share of like all the data entry after every round. So I think for certain rounds he was like rushing through his games, and still to finish 18-2, pretty incredible. And then these other 2 guys, that's Adam hiding behind the plant trophy, crushing it at 19-1, and young Noah Slatkoff, boom, 19-1 in the light division. So really, we did not have photo finishes at this tournament. But what was exciting is we did an upgrade to this tournament, which was go to a nicer venue this time. And we seemed to get lots of feedback that was pretty positive on that. And I think people had a good time. You played in the event. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, I had a great time. It was a good venue. I'd love to go there again. I hope it becomes a new host venue for us, and they seem to like us there. I don't think there are any incidents with the hotel that I know of, so hopefully they'll have us back.
For sure. I'm going to be talking with them tomorrow and hopefully signing a deal for 2020.
Awesome.
So you can watch out for the Kingston Open in 2020. One other point I wanted to make is I think I attended one of the tournaments where you were directing and playing, and it was very early in my Scrabble career. I remember it was the last tournament I played before Nationals, and I was all set to go into Division 4 at Nationals. And I was really excited about performing well at my first Nationals. And then for whatever reason, you basically ruined my Nationals because we got paired twice, and somehow, and like, your record is you destroy me, but on this day, you let me win twice, and it propelled my rating so that all of a sudden I was in Division 3, and I spent the whole time, I just got killed. Yeah, exactly. So anyway. Okay, let's go on to our next highlight. This was, if you haven't seen this on Facebook, I don't have the picture, but this is from Hood River. So Benji, everybody loves Benji out there. Benji comes up with a big win. He's coming on in the last a little more than a year. I mean, he has a New Orleans win. He's got Albany New Year's just recently, this Hood River win. This guy is killing it. And you can see here, if we go to the full photo, if you love Benji, just keep typing Benji into Facebook and fill up an entire comment. That's a fun thing to do. And what was interesting about Benji's performance here is this is like a 20-game open. It's 20 players, 20 elite Collins players that go to Hood River for this tournament. And Benji started out 15-1 and then stumbled a little bit down the stretch, going 1-3 to finish 16-4. But he had enough. He had enough there to hold on to it. That's why I say he escapes Hood River with the win. But serious congrats to Benji there. And when it comes to opens, I don't know. How do you think you performed in the open this past weekend? What do you think about opens in general?
I like the challenge of an open being pretty much the middle of the field. I was, I think, 17th going in out of 34 or 36 players. Gave me a chance to move up if I played to my potential, what I thought was my potential, or it's a real test if I'm really worth what my rating is. And yes. Last year, I believe I lost quite a few rating points. That said, the previous Open, which I played in New Orleans, I did better than expected, and my rating went up quite a bit. So that was the case where I was a chance to improve on my rating, play some top players, and have a lot of fun.
Right. Well, I think about opens if I start out and I start getting hammered, which happened in this tournament. I mean, I'm losing a bunch of games.
Then you get hammered afterwards because you lose a bunch of games.
But I always think of the Swiss gambit, right? The idea is you start losing in those opens, and then you're playing at the bottom of the division, and the hope is that you ride that wave up, which I think happened to me once, but probably 20 times I've been hammered and thinking about, I'll just Swiss gambit my way back into contention. Most of the time it doesn't happen. I don't know if that's a valid strategy or more just a Scrabble meme, so to speak.
I try to win all my games regardless of when I'm playing them.
Gotcha. Okay, we had another tournament this weekend, and that was taking place. This was the Walleye. I think it's an open as well. That's one of the reasons we were going with open. Joe South, who I do not know personally, but we became Facebook friends earlier today. Joe, if you're watching, how you doing? Joe came up with a win. This one went down to a photo finish, like Hood River, and Joe won over Steve Grobe, and Steve posted about that. And because the standings for this tournament aren't publicly available yet, I thought the more interesting detail that we would talk about Joe here is what he did at the last Nationals. Do you remember when Joe was featured on the Daily Tableau for an extension that he made?
Oh, something about astrophysics.
He extended astro to astrobiology, which is just sick. I mean, that's amazing. That's a 12, right?
Something like probably went right across the board.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, congratulations to Joe. Now, let's see here. What we want to talk about next. Oh, and there was one other tournament which took place, I think, outside of New York, and Cornelia Guest went like 9-1. So congrats to Cornelia. Now, let's talk a little bit about, we referenced the fact that you were a professional photographer for many years. And I really liked the way you explained you're still a photographer. It's just you don't do it for a living anymore.
It's not my main gig.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, you probably, anyway. And of course, when people are like really into and really good at what they do, that tends to trickle into Scrabble. So I work at a live streaming company. So that's why I'm interested in live streaming and get to work on the live stream and stuff like that. And you have a history of working on some Scrabble photography and different kinds of creative projects. Is that right?
So when I was in photojournalism school, we were encouraged to photograph and get involved in things that we are interested in. So being interested in Scrabble, I thought, well, how can I kind of work this to my advantage or have some content related to Scrabble in my photography portfolio. And then I started shooting some local newspaper stories about the school Scrabble. And then I thought, okay, well, there's the World Scrabble Championships coming up. It'd be cool to get a photo of Nigel. But I don't live in New Zealand, and I'm not going to Malaysia or wherever he lives and wherever he plays. I'm not going to Thailand anytime soon. And then it was around 2011, I believe, there was the Canadian National Scrabble Championships, and it was piggybacking on some international open event, and Nigel was invited. So I thought, okay, I'm going to introduce myself to him as a Scrabble player and a photographer and see if I can get his portrait. And
and this was a risky move because Nigel will not accept any press coverage. And I don't totally know why that is. I've heard people talk about it, but I haven't heard him talk about it. I assume it's because he thinks, if somebody takes his picture, a little piece of his soul goes away. Or I've heard other things. I'm just kidding about that. But so it would be risky to go up to him because I remember going up to him many times at nationals and like, what about doing a quote or a picture? It's just like, no way. But give us your approach and how it turned out.
Yeah. So I think I did some small talk with him, just say, yeah, it's nice to have you here. This is your first time in Canada. He's not one for many words, even though he knows all the words. That makes sense. And then I told him a little bit about this project I have where I'm photographing some of the top Scrabble players for the Scrabble Portrait series. And it would be great to have him part of that series. I may have already photographed a couple of world champions, including Joel Wapnick and Adam Logan. So he seemed to be on board at that point. And so we spent maybe all of 3 or 4 minutes setting up a quick portrait shoot, and he's part of the series.
Right. So we're going to get into that series, but I think we wanted to feature one of your other projects, which was the Scrabble trading cards first, right?
Yeah. So this was another idea of a way to showcase some of my photography, some of also, I'd previously been a writer. I was a journalist before, a photojournalist. So I thought, okay, I could maybe get a few of the top players or friends of mine who play Scrabble and make little stats about them. So Jason Katz Brown was one of the first to come on board and think, oh yeah, it's a great idea. I can give you some stats. So we made it really fun and lighthearted, and I worked with a designer friend of mine, and we quickly put together this little template. And
let's take a look at it right now. We'll put it up on screen. They'll still be able to hear us here. So here we go. We've got some nice stats on JKB. What do we want to highlight here? We got hometown, we got occupation, we've got peak rating, high game, so all the basics. What else do we have on there?
So I like the idea of a specific word that he's known for, or that he once played a word that is really memorable. So I asked him, is there a word that sticks out that you can put on the card? So yeah, he put Pashalik through an A.
Wow.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I love here that he's the president of the official Kenji fan club. That's something. I wonder if that's still true. And does Kenji still have a fan club? Because I, for one, would be on it. Okay, and then we've got Who's Your Daddy?
That's Scrabble Daddy.
Of course.
A lot of these stats were taken from Cross Table. So thanks again for Seth Lipkin and his co-creator behind the scenes for providing us with all those stats.
And was this before JKB was involved with the creation of Quackle? Because I feel like that would be on the card.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Probably before that. Yep.
Right. Okay. So, and you did a series of those, right?
I had a handful. So when the Canadian Nationals was going to be the top 50 or 52 players, I had this idea of making a deck of playing cards, and on the back of playing cards would be these 50 players, top 50 players in Canada. Then I decided, okay, well, there are a lot of American players that I'd like to feature, and let's open it up. And then I thought, okay, well, instead of just having the top players, let's feature some of the other players as well, because I think, it's good to have equal opportunity for other players and kind of grow the game. But it's good to have one of those top players, like, okay, who's going to be the ace of spades? Who's going to be the
right? It's really reminiscent. It's really reminiscent of when the I shouldn't even say this, but the U.S. military, when going into Iraq, they did the whole thing with the cards. Anyway, I love it.
I grew up with trading cards and hockey cards, and I thought it's a fun way to maybe get a few more people into tournament Scrabble, and
for sure.
Maybe I'll revisit the idea. I don't know. I think I need some seed money to help with the resources and get all those photos taken or remade and get the stats together. And
you got to open a Kickstarter, and we'll promote it here.
Maybe we can do that.
Let's move on to the other Scrabble project that you're known for that I think that we really wanted to showcase for the audience, because I think they're really going to enjoy this. So what we're going to take a look at here are the Scrabble Portraits that Roger has done. And I just want to get the screen set up so everybody can see it. And you will see on the screen where you can see the entire set. And we're going to take a look at probably the most famous one first. And that is of the man we talked about before, the man, the myth, the legend, Nigel Richards. And this is the style of the Scrabble Portraits, right? You hold your name up like this, and it's like dead eye, centered. Maybe dead eye is the wrong.
Kind of mugshot style, right?
Yes.
Mugshot with the Scrabble tiles being spelling out your name. So a few portraits later after this one, some people just had too long a name.
Yes.
For instance, Robin Pollak Daniels, so she just had RPD.
Yeah.
And then, well, you'll see a few as we're going to cycle through.
Yeah, we'll go through some of these. We'll talk a little bit about Nigel here for a second, but yeah, we're gonna show you a series of these, and you can see the entire set at the URL rogercullman.com/Scrabble Portraits. Now, this particular photo kind of went viral, right? It was turned into a meme. So I want to show people what that looks like here.
So yeah, Imager kind of,
someone
posted it to Imager and ran with it. And now it's, this was maybe 6 years ago or something. It's up to over 4,500 views and 500 comments. So,
and the title is, this is Nigel Richards, world #1 Scrabble player. He looks exactly like you would expect the world #1 Scrabble player to look. Like, I guess they're missing a word there. But I love this kind of internet behavior where people pick up on stuff and it's fun. Memes are awesome. We should be doing more Scrabble memes around here.
I don't think I got a photo credit for that one.
Hilarious. Okay, so let's go back. We're back into this setup, and we're going to show you some different photos because they're really amazing. When you started this photo, like you said, you were really looking at champions. So here's our multiple-time champion, all Canadian, world, all that stuff, and I think national as well. We've got Adam Logan here, and it's just I really think these shots are amazing.
Thank you. Well, everyone was a bit of a challenge because, for one, getting them to sit and pose for a photo, not everyone is really enthusiastic about the idea. Some are pretty camera shy. Adam, having won a few titles, he's used to having the media take his photo, so I had that going for me. And I met him a few times before, so that was easy enough. Joel Wapnick, again, another Canadian champion.
Yep. And world champion.
And world,
right?
Yeah, and also world champion. So I'm glad to have him as part of the series. As I mentioned before, Robin Pollak Daniel couldn't quite fit her whole name on the Scrabble rack, so we went with RPD.
And I really think these are like, listen, I sat for one of these portraits, which you can find on the site, rogercullman.com/Scrabble Portraits. It's, they're really, I find them to be really kind of revealing, you know? Like you really get a sense of people's character looking at these photos. And I think it's really a nice compliment to the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks. Part of the challenge was getting them in between games in the tournament, which is generally when I took most of these photos. And a lot of them are very impromptu. The backgrounds are varied. It's not super controlled environment. So just kind of had to go with it. And the one of Marlon, he was laughing so hard. The H and the other L fell off his rack. So I thought, I'll just leave it in there instead of having them redo it.
No, that's great. Marlon, you're the best. Okay, and then there's sort of a time capsule factor, right? So here we go. Here's Mac Meller.
At age 12.
At age 12, like Jackson's current age. But look at him. He's like anyway, and that portrait will now sort of live on. I don't know. I love everything about this project that you can see people. I guess that's the whole thing with photography is they take a moment in time. Maybe it's not that revelatory. Anyway, that's really cool. Let's go to another one. There's Cecilia. Look at that. Love it.
So again, this was several years ago. I tried to make everyone have their personality come through in some way. Try to connect with them with the camera, and let's see a few more.
All right, here we go. Here's our buddy Max. There we go. A little bit of an impish grin on Max, would you say? Is that fair? And then one of my all-time idols. Here's KFC, the amazing Kate Fukuhara Connolly. I think I got that right. Kate, here we go. And then we're going to finish on a photo that I know you had some thoughts about here with Travis.
Yeah, so Travis I met at one of the nationals, very colorful character. And I tried to capture some of this. I hung out with Travis in Portland prior to the national championships in, I believe it was Vegas, so it was not far from Portland. And so we spent a little time together, and this was shot at a cafe in Portland. And the brightness and sparkle in his eyes, this makes this one of my favorite portraits.
Well, and the stash, come on. Margaret wants to know, first of all, she says, wow, fabulous work. She loves the photos. And then she wants to see my photo, which you are going to have to do by searching for it on rogercullman.com/Scrabble Portraits. And you can even buy prints there, right? Is that still?
Yeah, you can buy prints directly from my website.
Gotcha. Awesome.
If you want to be a part of the series, approach me in a tournament and I'll take your photo. And I've had a few more that I've done since posting or updating my website. So stay tuned, and you might see a few of your friends, Scrabble friends, featured as well. And I'll be happy to include you as well. You don't have to be an expert. In fact, I want to get more people from varied ratings levels and backgrounds and locales and ages to showcase what our community is all about.
Beautiful. I noticed that James Curley just joined us on the show. And James, I don't even know if we've met, but I am a devout follower of James Curley's Facebook page. He was out in Hood River, and he had all these awesome photos from what was going on out there. Hood River is a tournament that, quite frankly, I would probably never get invited to, never mind never play. But it really looks fantastic. They've created a hell of an experience out there. And also, I want to recommend, if you're into doing some Facebook snooping, I don't know, like I am, check out Conrad's posts about Hood River. There's this picture that is outside of the cabin that they stay in at the mountain that's right over top. It's unbelievable. At one point in Kingston, because we had a projector showing the standings on the screen, I was like, oh my God, is that the mountain from Conrad's Facebook post? I'm like, what's going on? No, it was a screensaver running through the projector showing, these magnificent photos. Anyway, it looked exactly like Conrad's photo. So check that out. Okay. Sorry, that was a tangent for sure. Here's what I want to say. We are going to talk about, the next thing we're going to talk about is some upcoming tournaments. So I don't know if you know what your next tournament is, Roger. Do you have a plan for when your next tournament is?
In about 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be playing the Purple and Green tournament in Medina, Ohio.
I see. Dan Stock, right? Is it Dan who runs that? Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah.
Purple. What am I talking about?
That's the weekend of
Dan and Joyce.
Yeah, that's the weekend of St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Which is the green.
Absolutely.
And Dan's the purple, of course.
For sure. And it's the same weekend, actually, as Poughkeepsie, which is a tournament that I'm thinking about going to. But we'll see how that works out. We'll see if I can get my pain levels down a little bit by then. Next weekend, though, you're going to want to check out Saratoga Springs. I think they're still taking a few entries there. They've done a great job of really Annette does a great job, and they've managed to add more and more people over the last 2 weeks. We've got, I think it's a Cornelia Guest joint happening in Manhattan. That's a 1 day coming up. We've got the Pacific Coast Open by David Pearl coming up, I think in 2 weeks, if I've got that right, March 2nd and 3rd. Sounds about right. And then we've got something that I didn't even know what it was on Cross Tables, March Gladness. Doesn't that sound like a nice tournament to go to?
I'm glad you mentioned it.
I want to look into this tournament and see what it is, because I haven't seen this title before. I know there's been Michigan Madness, then there's just the Madness and Mildness tournaments that Dan Horowitz runs down in Delaware. And then, of course, Poughkeepsie, like we said. So anyway, we're going to have to cover the Purple and Green. I've never been to that one. I've been to Dan's Karaoke Classic, which is a fantastic tournament. So anyway, those are tournaments coming up. And now we're going to get to one of my favorite parts of the show, which is Scrabble Birthdays. And it was a banner week for Scrabble Birthdays. I always like to throw birthday wishes out there to Scrabble players. So let's do it. I say we do this one together, Roger.
Right on.
What do you say?
Sure.
So happy birthday to Stephanie Brown,
Jamie Ryan,
Feargal Weatherhead,
Matt Zeleznik,
Barry Keith,
Wima Muumbi,
Rudy Villa,
Pete Thorpe,
Charlie Williamson,
Emmanuel Eid,
Gerda DeVries,
Robin Pollak Daniel,
the previously featured Robin Pollak Daniel, Steve Grove,
Ali Rashid Khan,
Kay Moeller,
and Neil Raleigh. So
happy birthday to all of you people. If you want to be featured on the NASPA Tonight birthday roundup, make Facebook friends with me. It's that simple. Okay. I want to thank everybody for watching, for commenting. Oh, Steve says we missed a couple. Oh, there are a couple corrections actually coming from Facebook comments. We're about to do the sign off. One, it wasn't Astro extending with biology. It was oology. Is that a word? It was oology, and they extended it with astrobe.
Astrobi.
Astrobi. Yeah. So
Astrobi.
That's correction number one. And correction number two, as Steve says here, add Louise Schaffritz, Stephanie Steele, and Bob Lipton.
So happy birthday, everyone.
Happy birthday, everybody. Okay. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for commenting. Going to be back next week with another show, Tuesdays at 9. And I want to thank my very special guest, Roger Cullman. And thanks, buddy, for not only all the free medical advice this weekend, but you did all the driving. You drove Jackson and I. You're, as I said multiple times, you're a rock star this past weekend. And the worst part about driving me to a tournament that I'm organizing, you really got to wait. You're the last person to leave. So I want to apologize formally for that. Anyway, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. You want to say goodnight?
Good night.